majority of the room knows what the FMS is, knows the functional movement screen, but we want to make sure that we go over the details. What is a 3? What is a 2? What is a 1? I'm going to cover element 1 that Steve just covered, those 5 elements. I'm going to cover that in detail. So I'm going to cover what a 3 is, what a 2 is, what a 1 is, because if that's wrong, we're not talking the same language. That is extremely important, because I get people to call me and they're like, what would you do with this client? That's a very, very difficult answer, or question to answer if you know nothing about it. If I know that we're on the same page as far as communication, you tell me there are 2 and I can believe that that's a 2 and it's not a 1, now it's like I have a much better job of being able to relay better information to you so you can help the client better. And same thing, vice versa. We just need to be able to be all on the same page. So let's go over the details of what a 3, a 2, a 1 is with each of the 7 movement patterns with the functional movement screen. And then as soon as we get through that, we're going to show you how 3 different methods that you can screen a lot of people at once. Some of you may just be starting a gym. Some of you may have 200 clients and you're just wanting to tighten up systems. That's the way we came up with this. Whenever we started, we had 100 plus members at each location, and we're just like, we need to, improve on what we're currently doing. Our personal training clients are getting screened. They're getting all the information. We're giving them a lot better service. How do we give this service to our group members? And that all started with the screen. So let's start with the screen. I need 1 volunteer, whoever wants to get a screen right now. Hop on up. So we start out FMS first. I skipped a slide. So it's a researched and proven system. So this has been around 15, 16 years. It's quick, easy in a group setting. So you're going to be able to see me go through this, and then we're going to do it tomorrow, but you're going to see how fast, if you have a few people that know the FMS, how fast you can actually get through a lot of screens so you can get good information with the clients. It's a complete system. So it's developmental kinesiology. It basically takes you from the ground up. It lets us know, exactly where we need to put you. And there's a system of if this, then this. If you see this, don't do this because it's going to do the client more harm than good. And then it's also a standard baseline that we can go back on. As Steve said, it's like a lot of the times we'll check that weakest link during a training session because we want to make sure at least it stayed the same. It didn't get worse from that training session. Because if it got worse, whatever stimulus we put on that body, it was rejecting it. So we need to make sure that we have that baseline. And if you don't get the baseline, how do you know? So that's huge with the movement screen. The 7 movements, you're going to get to see this broken out. We've got the overhead deep squat, the inline lunge, and it's not in the order I like, but the hurdle step. Those are our big 3. So those are the big 3 movements, a lot of joints, a lot of stuff going on. Then we got the small 4. So we've got active straight leg raise, shoulder mobility, and then we have the other 2, which is going to be the trunk stability push-up and the rotary stability. So I already got the model. This is a good Jared Leto time. All right, deep squat. So this is pulled. Everything that I pulled here, all the bullet points, for the most part, they were just taken from movementbook.com. So this is straight out of Gray Cook's book, Movement. And these are criteria that it takes to get a 3, a 2, or a 1. Okay? So I'm going to take Zelly through the screen here, and we're going to start with the deep squat. So Zelly, go ahead, grab the stick. You don't have to go heels up to the board, but I'm going to. I'm going to have them start here. Your feet will be shoulder width apart, toes straight ahead. We'll get the bar 90 degrees in the elbows, press overhead, and we'll go from a squat. So setup. As you notice, I went through setup. You can clearly explain the setup because we need them in the right position. I do not want to coach him through this movement, though. I need to see how he naturally squats. But I can always use some of the same bullet points of what I can say to him. And setup is part of it. So the feet look good. Hands go a little bit more narrow. Right there, so we got 90. Now go ahead, press overhead. Pull that bar back so it's right over top of the spine. And from there, I want to see you squat. So as he goes through this, I'm looking for a couple things. Good, go ahead, come up, Zelly. And let's go ahead, I'm going to have you put your heels on the board. Good. And I recheck the foot position. I recheck the exact same starting position. And from there, now I'm going to have you go into a squat. And then go ahead, come up. Let me see one more. Come up. And I lied, I want to see one more. And come up. Cool. So right there, I'm going to give them a score of a 1. What I'm looking at, these are the certain things that I'm looking at. So in order to get a 3, there's 4 big bullet points that you have to hit. If you don't hit them, you can't count it. Upper torso is going to be parallel with the tibia. So basically the shin and the spine should be roughly parallel. The femur below horizontal, that's one of the areas that he was restricted, was he wasn't giving me the depth that I want. I could have asked him to squat deeper and see if he could go there. I don't want to coach him through it, but if I want a deeper squat, I could have verbally said, go ahead and give me a deeper squat. The knees aligned over the feet, so I'd be looking for valgus varus. I want to just make sure the knees stay stable over top of the feet, and then the dowel aligned over the feet. I don't want to see that dowel tip forward. So whenever I put them heels up on the board, most of those criteria were met. The femur below horizontal was not met. He still had probably a good 5-6 inches to go. So that's what's going to make him, whenever he was on the ground, not a 3. That's all I knew whenever he was on the ground. I didn't know if he was going to be a 1 or a 2. I had to pop the heels up on the board, and whenever I pop the heels up on the board, if you look, all the same criteria has to be met. So it has to be that same beautiful, perfect squat, just with the heels elevated. So the femur, the femur and the spine, or the tibia and the spine have to be parallel. Each one of those 4 bullet points would have to be met in order to get a 2. If you don't get that, score is going to be a 1.
So you said not to coach them at all?
You'll have like verbal cues that you can do, so you can do the setup. You can tell them like keep the bar, over your head. So if it's like tipping forward, but I wouldn't be like saying, drive your knees out in the squat, or any like coaching cues to make the squat better, because I might be able to verbally make that squat better, but I know in the real world whenever they squat, they're going to squat, however they just showed me, but I just don't want to coach through that. So movementbook.com would be a good reference point to go back to, because there are verbal instructions. So if you're given the same verbal instructions I'm giving, and you're given a same 3, a same 2, a same 1, that's that huge communication that needs to be, that has to be there. So the therapist can work with the trainer can work with the therapist, we can all work together. So I'm going to score Zelly a 1. And the big one was primarily femur below horizontal, and then also he was starting to get some toes spinning out as he was going through that too. I'm not going to analyze. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I think he's got, weak glute med or anything like that. All I know is the squat, I don't want to load that. I don't want to load that too heavy, because it's that score of a 1. So that one would be a red light. The next one is going to be a hurdle step. So our hurdle step, we're going to measure his tibial tuberosity. So I take the tibial tuberosity, which, as I demonstrated, I am substantially shorter. I'm going to go down to mine and then raise it back up. So here, the feet are going to be together, the toes at the base of the board. The setup is crucial. Everybody wants to go here. If you go here where my feet are now a couple inches apart, I don't know if the same tester is going to be the same. But if you line it up and the toes are at the base and your feet are together, you can hit that spot every single time. It doesn't matter who's testing. So from here, you get to the starting position, bars rested on the back. You just step up, everything points straight ahead, touch just the heel, and then you come back to the starting position. And that's pretty much all I really say to them, because I want to see what their natural movement looks like. So I tell them to rest the bar on the back. I tell them to stand tall. I tell them to balance. I tell them to touch just the heel. So I'm telling them what I want to see, and that's it. So Zelly, bring your feet together. This is huge. Everybody lines up there. I want your feet to actually touch. There you go. Because now I know I can get them back to that same spot for the next rep. So from there, looking straight ahead, don't look down. Good. I want you to step up and over. Good. Touch just the heel, and then come back. Okay. Touch the feet again. Go ahead, reset real quick, Zoe. Touch your feet. Good. Now you can go with that left again. Okay, reset the feet and go with, give me a right. Good, just a heel. Give me right again. Cool. Twos. So he's going to be 2 right, 2 left. And I'll go over bullet points. And also with the FMS, you get up to 3 repetitions. But a lot of the times when I'm screening groups, if you're close, I'll give you all 3. But I know just by seeing the screen where he's at, like he's got a lot of different things going on that I just know he's not going to give me a 3 on that extra rep. I just shaved some time real quick there. But he's 2-2, so he's symmetrical. This one, there's a lot of variance. A 3 is, you don't get a ton of 3s on the hurdle step. Hips, knees, ankles have to stay in the sagittal plane. Basically, everything has to point straight forward. I can't see anything go into the frontal plane or change planes. Everything's got to point straight forward. Minimal movement in the lumbar spine. So this is where I like to get different views. You saw that with the squat. Here, I wouldn't want flexion or extension. I want that spine to stay fairly stable, pretty much stable the entire time. And then the dowel remains parallel with basically the floor of the hurdle. So that dowel can't twist. And then also the hips should stay stable too. Because if you see a big hip hike, that lumbar spine is going to be moving too. And that kind of ties into the second one. 2, and if you get all 3 of those, everything's parallel. Boom, you're locked in, your posture's tall, you're balanced, you're able to touch, and you're right back. That's what will give you a 3. A 2, there's a big variance. So let me cover what a 1 is, and 2s will be pretty much everything in between. What a 1 is loss of balance. So that's somebody that's going to step up, and then you give them the verbal instruction of touch your heel, and they can't. They step up and over, and then they have to put the whole foot down. And you give them 3 repetitions, and it happens, and it happens, and it happens. You know there's going to be a loss of balance. Or they do that, and then they come back, and then they lose their balance doing that. So any loss of balance on that is going to be a score of a 1. Kick the kid over. Happens all the time. So going up, whether they kick the post, they kick the string, any foot contact with that string, no go. That's going to be a 1. And you got to make a field goal. So you can't go around the thing, touch your heel, and then come on back. Give me a field goal. So stay within the parameters of a pretty wide, hurdle step there. So those are the 1. So I'm kicking the kid over, I can't balance, or I'm clipping the string. Those are the big things that are going to be a 1. A 2 is anything in between. So it could look like what Zelly did, or it could look even better to where it's just a little bit, and you get a little bit of a hip hike, or just itty bit of a... So I mean, it could be a solid 2 right there, or it could be, I'm still remaining balanced, I'm up, I'm over. It's giving me all the criteria I'm looking for, but there's a big difference between them. So there's a big window between those 2s, but just make sure You follow those bullet points and score it accordingly. One thing I haven't said, and I don't think I caught Steve say, is but when scoring, when in doubt, score low. That's huge, huge, huge. So it does nobody any good to score them higher than what they actually are. If you question it, even for a split second, knock it down to the lower notch, because you're only going to give that client the attention they need to where they can build that 1 up to a 2, or they can build that 2 up to a 3 if that's the desired outcome. So he's got a set of 2s on his hurdle step. We're going to move into the inline lunge. I've already measured his tibial tuberosity. We're going to use that exact same measurement for his foot placement distance apart. So whenever you go on here, what I'm going to have you do, Zelly, is we're going to line up. The toe is going to be at the 0. Your heel will go to 51. I'm going to go to 45. Whatever leg is forward, that arm goes down. Whatever hand, the opposite, will go to the cervical spine. So hand will be in the low back. Hand will be in the gap at the neck, at the cervical spine. And I want you to remain 3 points of contact. So it's touching your head, your shoulders, and your butt. Whenever I tell you to go, you go straight down and straight up. $51. Good. Now with your left toe, I want you to pull it in and point it towards me. It's spun out to the side a little bit. Keep coming. Keep going. A little bit more. There you go. I'm cool with that. Now your hands, switch your hands. So the right hand will be in the low back. The left hand will be the 1 up. Okay. Now I want this hand right here. This hand right here. Okay. Now I'm going to lean you back. And I want this to touch your tailbone. And I want your head to touch it too. So I look at the hand position. Good. I make sure we got our 3 points of contact. I make sure the feet are set. Both toes are straight down the board. The heels should be flat. Is your left heel flat to the ground? I can't tell if that's just you. Cool. Okay. And now let's go ahead. Give me a lunge. Come up. Bring your right foot forward just like 1 centimeter, just a smidge. Cool. Now reset that left back toe, pull it straight. Okay. Then go ahead, drop down. And come back up. Let me see the other side. Go a little further back with that right foot. So it's, yeah. Cool. Now I want you to pull keep going. Okay. A lot of the times whenever you got clients and you do that and you tell them to straighten that, they just fall off the board. And if that happens, that's an attempt. So if you try to get into a board, don't sit there and fight this. If they fall off the board, that's an attempt. I'm good. I want the head to touch. And then actually slide this down just a little bit. Okay. Lean back just a smidge right there. Okay. Whenever you're ready. Come back up. Good, reset. Want to touch your tailbone. And go again. Okay. Pair of 2s. So looking at our criteria, I'll do the same thing. I'll cover what a 3 is, what a 1 is, and there's some variance with what a 2 is going to be on this screen. So 3 points of contact would have to be maintained. He would have to maintain head, shoulder blades and butt basically staying in contact the entire time. The dowel remains vertical, so that means it doesn't pitch forward at all. We've got no torso movement, so that's going to be lateral sway or flexion extension. The dowel and the feet stay within the sagittal plane, so that's going to also be no sideways motion. And then the knee would have to be able to touch the board, so you'd have to be able to get full range of motion, and you have to be able to touch underneath. I wouldn't want it to touch way out to the side. So those are going to be, you have to get each one of those 5 points right there in order to get a 3.
When you're setting your client up, some of my clients, starts with their balance as they go to the end. Have you ever assist them with the balance and then let go and let them start their attack?
A lot of the times I'll let them use the post. So I'll let them use the post, get their feet set, and then go. But I don't balance them. Because if they split their legs like that and then all of a sudden they lose balance, that's something I need to be aware of. That split stance, you have no stability. Like, I don't want to give you false stability by me giving you stability. But they can initially get set. And then you got to own it once you're on that board.
Most of my clients with the back heel have that ankle issue.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you adjust it?
3.
I mean, I know, but
If they...
So you physically take their ankle?
Yeah, I'll that's straight, and then if I let go, and then they're all like, but if they don't know what straight is, yeah, I don't mind just kind of getting them there. But a lot of the times you do get somebody like that, and you do this, then they're off the board, and that's going to happen every single time pretty much. So don't sit there and waste your time and give them 10 times to do that because they want to. They're off the board. That's an attempt. That's the loss of balance, which loss of balance is our score of a 1. So if you do that 3 times in a row, that's going to be a score of a 1. If you're not able to complete the motion, you're not able to get the full depth, that's going to be a score of a 1. So there's a lot of variance in those 2s. So it's got to be a unicorn. It's got to be perfect, or you're pretty much falling off the board, or you can't complete the motion, and that'll be a 1. Another thing I haven't said yet is zeros or pain. So I'm always just looking for, does this hurt? And Zelly's an athlete. A lot of the times he'll tell me, nah, that doesn't hurt. But facial expression sometimes will give me otherwise. Lost my slide. So that's pretty much the inline lunge. That's our big 3. So that's big global movement patterns. Squatting, lunging, stepping. A lot involved in those patterns. Now let's get down to the small 4. This is where the money's at. Shoulder mobility. So the next 2 I'm going to cover are basically our pod 1, which we'll cover later in this weekend, of which pods are kind of where exercises should be. This is our mobility. So this one's fairly easy. I'm going to measure his hand, basically from the end of his middle finger to this first line at the bottom of the palm. So I'm going to get that measurement, and that's where my scoring comes from. So he's got to basically fall within that measurement to get a score of a 3. So 1 hand's length. 1.5 hands length will be a score of a 2. Anything beyond that is going to be a score of a 1. And then we'll go into a pain clearance test, which I'll show you next. So here, let me measure your hand. So he's got 24 centimeters. So whenever I get this measurement, if he can give me within 24 centimeters, putting his fist together, that'll be a score of a 3. If I take half of that, that'd be another 12, so I'd have 36 centimeters. If he's able to give me within 36 centimeters, it's going to be a score of a 2. If they're 36 centimeters or anything bigger, it's going to be a score of a 1. If he goes, atched, that's going to be a score of a 0. So let's go feet together. Good. And here you go, same foot placement. That way I know everything's the same. The thumb goes inside the fist. So go ahead and make a fist. Good. I like to make a T, and now whatever one you want to go, I want 1 to go over, 1 to go under. Reach at the same time. Once they hit your back, stop that motion. Right there. So he's got 20 centimeters right there. I want to see the same side. 21, so I'm good with that. That falls within the score of a 3. So he was within that 24 centimeters. Let's see the other side. I want to reset. .22. So he's within that. So he's within the scores of 3s.
Are
now,
you looking at all extension or anything like that?
I kind of take note in my head of what's going on. How is he reaching to get that? But as far as the score itself, like he kept the motion going at the same time, and then he placed it there.
Yeah.
And that's why if you saw me kind of grabbing, because he wanted to kick and give me that little cheat, but stop him exactly where he was at, and that's where he was at. So there was a couple things I noted. He had a little bit of, flexion, his head pushed forward a little bit, so it's like he was fighting to get those, but they still fell within there. So score it that way, and then you can just kind of take a mental note of, what you saw. The pain clearance test. So you go same foot position, feet will be together, hand goes on the opposite shoulder. I want the heel of the palm basically in touch with the collarbone. I pull the elbow to the midline because I want a little bit of adduction. And then I want you to go ahead and just raise. Keep going if you can. Does that hurt?
No.
Okay, let's see the left. Raise. Does that hurt?
No.
So he's going to be clear. So that's just a, does it hurt, yes or no? If it's a yes, then it's going to be, I would just mark which side, whether it's right, left, or both. And then I would just automatically score the shoulder mobility as 0. And at that point, it would be a good point to either stop and refer out, or you can continue to see the bottom 4. But it's something that we want to note. So if we get a 0, we want to make sure that we're not, we're in a fitness world, that we're dealing with a fitness-related issue, not a medical-related issue. So any 0s, use your referral system to make sure that, there could be something big going on that we caught. But we want to make sure that we treat fitness with fitness, medical with medical. So that's our shoulder mobility. The next one, active straight leg raise. This is one to be cautious with. Make sure that you're scoring this one right. Take your time with this one, because there's a lot of dysfunction with this, but it's very easy to fix on a lot of people. So our straight leg raise, what I'm going to have you do is you're just going to go on your back. The knees go over top of the board. Pull your toes in towards you, palms up. Nice, steady, and slow. I want you to raise up. I don't want your toes to spin out. I don't want your knees to bend. Slide this way, Zoe. A little bit more. Good. And then feet together, toes pulled up. Now I'm going to measure to find out where I'm scoring from. So I'm going from ASIS, knee right in the middle. And then I just find that midpoint. Now this is my landmark. So if you're looking, let me just score this first and then I'll explain it, whatever leg you want to go on. Bring it down. I want you to do same thing, half speed. Good. Bring it back down. And go again. Okay. I'm going to go 2. Opposite leg. Bring it back down. Good. Reset those toes, pull them back in. Good. Go. So he's got a pair of 2s. So here what I'm looking for, knee bend, toe spin out, big arching in the back. He should be able to maintain neutral spine. The legs should stay straight. The toes shouldn't flare out. In order to get a score of a 3, he would have had to pass that point to where I measured. So I measured that mid-thigh point from ASIS, knee, found that midpoint, and then if he would have got past it, that would have been a 3. The knee to that point was where he fell, so he fell in the zone of a 2. And then if he wouldn't have been able to get that leg up and he would have raised and it wouldn't have passed the knee, then that would have been a score of a 1. Those are the big ones that you want to catch. Catching a 1 in this area can make, 1, improve strength, athleticism, reduce pain. This is a huge, huge, huge pattern that we need to make sure we're clearing before we start to load our clients under, excessive load. That's our straight leg raise. Last 2 are going to be stability. So we've got a trunk stability push-up. Our trunk stability push-up, it's a little different for guys and girls. Girls, the starting position, the hands, in order to get a 3, will be at the chin. A 2 would be at the shoulder height. Guys are going to be at the forehead for a score of a 3, at the chin for a score of a 2. So the hand position is just a little different for guys and girls. So we've got a man up here, so we're going to go ahead and put him with the starting position to where his hands are going to be forehead height. That's going to be checking the 3. So what I want you to do here, Zelly, is you're going to go down on your belly. I'm going to have your hands be shoulder width, forehead height, elbows up, knees up, push. So here, good, feet are together. The thumbs are AC joint width, so you kind of know you're at the same position every single time. Forehead height, I'm good with that, and feet are together. So that's our starting position. Here I usually just say elbows up, knees up, and tell them to push. So elbows up, knees up. Come back down. Good. Elbows up, knees up, down. That moves pretty solid. So he moves together as one unit. There's no delay. There's no rotation drop. That his body moves together as a segment. I don't have to go anything further with him there. I'm going to give him a 3 on his trunk stability push-up. If he was not able to perform that, let's say he had just a little lag, I would just move his hands. So I would move his hands from a 3 to a 2 for a guy. That's going to be chin. And then I would just say elbows up, knees up, let him go through the push. If it then got perfect, it would be a score of a 2. So it's like the squat. It still has to be perfect in order to get the 2. If there's any lag, rotational drop, or it's not perfect at that point and you move the hands, it's going to be a score of a 1. Now we'll go into the pain clearance test. The pain clearance test, you're in the position right there. What I want you to do is keep your hips on the ground, Zelly, and I just want you to push, raise up, good. Does that hurt? So that's going to be negative on the back extension test. So he's going to get a score of a 3. Now, if, let's say he got that score of a 3, and then that one hurt, it would have been a score of a 0 on the push-up. So the pain clearance test trumps everything. So if the shoulders, your threes, and it hurts, it's going to be a 0. The last one we got is going to be our rotary stability. So our rotary stability, very few 3s will be had here. I usually start, especially in a group world, and I'm trying to get through a lot of people quickly, I'm going to start with just a score of a 2. Because that's going to be that's how my programming is going to be affected too. So it's going to tell me if they're a 2 or a 1, not necessarily a 3. If they just nail the 2 and it is perfect, I might have them try to get a 3 just because they may be one of the select few that can actually do that. What I'm going to have you do here, Zelly, is you're going to straddle the board. The toes are going to touch, the knees are going to touch, the thumbs are going to touch. I want your knees under your hips, your hands under your shoulders. You're just going to go opposite arm, opposite leg out. Bring the knee in to touch the elbow, and then reset. After we check both sides, I'm just going to have you drop down and let me know if that hurts. Good. Crawl forward. That way your toes can touch the board. Keep coming. There. Now pull your toes in towards you. So flex your ankles. Keep going. Yeah. And that's one big area is the feet, the ankles. Everybody wants to lay them down because you get extra stability from them. So make sure each time you check that. Hands are going to be under. Good. Now I'm just going to flatten the back out a little. Good. Okay. So the hands are under the shoulders, the thumbs are touching, the knees are under the hips, the ankles are flexed. Now from right there, I want you to go opposite arm, opposite leg, go out. Bring the knee in to touch the elbow. Good. Go ahead, reset. Reset the ankles. Good. Let's see the same side again. Good. Let me see the opposite side. Okay, reset the ankles. Opposite, that same side again. Okay. And then let's go to the pain clearance test. Just rock back. Can you get back in there? Okay. Does that hurt? Okay. I'm going to give him ones. So he's got one on right, one on left. So going over this, a 3, like I don't have to go there because I tried him at a 2. I know he's a 1. Like a 3 would be if he was just perfect on the 2 and I wanted to try the 3. The 3 is the unilateral version. So it's just going the same side out, bringing the knee in to touch, and staying over top of the board the whole time. So if you look at the criteria, the big difference, I had him go opposites. I just did same. So the same is a score of a 3. If I do that, you have to remain, the elbow and the knee have to track over top of the board the entire time. If that kicks out to the side, that's not going to be a score of a 3. The heel on that down leg, if I was down here, would have to stay vertical. I wouldn't want that leg kicking out to the side. So that's going to be a loss of stability. Heel vertical, and then under control. So it's got to be smooth and it's got to be together. It can't be like arm, leg, and just going separate. It's got to be fluid, under control, elbow and knee track over top of the board, and that down heel has to remain vertical. Score of a 2. Going through the bullet points here is you have to be able to go the diagonal repetition, not the unilateral, so opposite arm, opposite leg. Minimal to no lumbar spine movement. So you'll see that as I kick the leg out, I don't want to see a hard drop in that lumbar spine. So there should be minimal to no lumbar spine movement. That should stay under control as you extend the hip. The spine should be symmetrical as you reach and touch. You should actually be able to touch those 2 points. So I want to make sure that it's a nice rounded spine and I don't have to overreach with either my hip or my T-spine to get those to touch. It should be very symmetrical and fluid. If you can do that and you can do that under control and make that look pretty, that's going to be a score of a 2. And then the 1s are going to be where you get the lumbar spine moving to where you have a drop so the hips don't stay flat. So that was more what Zelly had. Like he didn't have a ton of lumbar spine motion. It was more the drop. And then also as he would go into flexion, that's where he also lost a little bit of stability. So that's going to be more of why I scored him a 1. Pain clearance test, you just want to be able to rock back, get that spine into flexion, and see if that hurts. And pain anywhere through that, it could be in your big toe. I just want to know if it hurts. If it hurts, that would be a score of a 0. So that's the functional movement screen. That's element 1. This gives us our data of what we need to properly train a client. So let's go through kind of what I did with Zelly. We've got, I know, just going off of memory, our squat, that was a 1. I don't want to be giving him like back squats in his program today. Not a smart call. His hurdle steps were 2s. Train those, use your coaching, use your skills as coaching. The inline lunge, those were 2s. So we can train those, but we just need to make sure that we put them into the right progression. Shoulder mobility, he was 3s. I'm going to just use coaching and feel free to start to train the upper body. They were symmetrical. Straight leg raises were 2s, so symmetrical 2s. I'm not going to necessarily restrict anything on that. Trunk stability push-up. He's got a good outer core. He gave me a score of a 3. Everything moved together. But he's got some inner core function with scores of 1s on the rotary stability. So we've got some red lights for him. We know what to take out of his program. We just did our job. Like, I'm explaining everything. If I was just running a screen through real quick, I'd probably have it done in 7 or 8 minutes. It doesn't take that long. So now I got the information I need to give him a better program. Thank you, Zelly.
Question. What's your preference to warmed up versus cold?
Cold. Majority of the time. Majority of the time I want cold unless I'm dealing with a client that they're fine. Then they're a runner, they go out and they get hurt or they get injured or they start to feel pain 3 miles in. At that point, I might want them to go run a mile and then see, like, screen them before, go take a couple miles and come back and screen them whenever they get back because maybe they fell apart. You know, and sometimes you'll see that they come out, they're boom, twos. They come back, they're 1. You know, so it's like somewhere through there, something happened. And at that point, you might be able to, you know, have a better chance of convincing them that a run for them at that point in time might not be the smart thing to do to change their programming because apparently they run, they fall apart. And that's why they have pain. But for the most part, I want to get people cold, not warmed up, unless there's a specific reason why I'm going after that.
I've seen them done with shoes on and without shoes on.
What? However you're going to train. So if I train barefoot more regularly, I'm going to want to train barefoot. If I'm constantly basically doing it for running and I'm in running shoes, whatever you're going to train in primarily, as a coach, that's what I want to see your footwear be. Other questions? Okay. I'm going to go into the screening. This is our scoring sheet. We're going to actually be going, everybody will be getting one of these because you'll be going through a screen tomorrow. So everybody will go through a functional movement screen. You'll get to feel it if you've never been through one, and you'll get accurate data to be able to, you know, train yourself appropriately. So how do you screen large groups? So screening large groups is where a lot of people get confused. It's the exact same screen. Nothing changes in our screen. We have 3 primary methods that we use. Some cost a little bit more, and they require a little bit more staff. Like if I was hired to go in and screen the NFL Combine to where I have 200, 300 people up in there, I'm going to be using this method. So it's like I've got the staff that I know, that knows the screen, that I believe everything that they're doing. I can get 7 coaches, no problem, that know the screen, that can give me information. So I'd go up into that combine with 7 coaches and 6 kits, and I'd be able to hammer out those people fairly quickly. You know, we'd get through them very fast. Let's go, and then there's a 3 kit, 3 coach. For the most part, whenever we do group screens around here, this is the one that we do because we don't have 200 or 300 people that we have to do all within, you know, a half-day period or whatever, a one-day event. These are our clients. This is what we pretty much do here. So 3 kits, 3 coaches. You can still hammer out a group of 20, 25, very fast and efficient. And then you got 3 kit, 1 coach. I really like 2 kit just because 3 gets a little chaotic. But having people set up and just being able to see the movements, I can get through a lot of screens. Like I can easily screen 5 people in, you know, less than 30 minutes. So 6 kit, 7 coach. This is the big mecca. You know, this is like if you need a lot and you have the resources available, it's not cheap to buy 6 kits. You know, so it's like you got to have a little bit of money to get 6 kits. You got to have the staff and resources to have 7 coaches, but you can hammer through a lot of people if you have the resources to do so. So the 6 kit, 7 coach, basically, if I was going like using the NFL Combine, I would give each person that's going through that their own sheet, and I don't have to write for them. Clients are good enough that, you know, they know what a 3 is, a 2 is. You can just tell them, hey, under trunk stability push-up, put a 1. So I give them each that with a pen, so they each have their own clipboard. 1 coach for each movement. So we have 7 coaches. You can just have 1 coach that's doing deep squats. They're going to deep squat screen every single person that's going through the combine. Same way with the hurdle step, same way with the inline. You're just going to be one after the next, and the people can just kind of go through an assembly line of getting screened. And then have each client go consecutively. So it's like you can have deep squat, hurdle step, inline lunge, and as soon as you're done, you just go to the next coach. And then done with rotary stability, you're on your way to, whether you got to go get a 40-yard dash or whatever you got to do. So that's our 6-kit, 7-coach method. It's not the most cost efficient, but you can get through the most people in the shortest amount of time with accurate data. The next one, this is where a lot of people use our 3-kit, 3-coach. So 3-kit, 3-coach method is going to be, as it says, you have 3 kits, you have 3 coaches. Whenever we do this, we assemble one large group. So I would semicircle everybody up around me. I'd explain what we're getting ready to do. So I'd be like, hey, group of 25, we're getting ready to go through a functional movement screen. We're going to be able to get some information to help us, give you better results. I give each person the same thing. They each have their own screening sheet, their own pen, clipboard, so they can write down the information as I go through it. Here is where, notice, we have 2 coaches start with the deep squat, and that 3rd coach, it's a big time saver because, as you noticed whenever I was screening Zelly, I had to get his tibia height and I had to get his hand length. So those are simple measurements that you can send somebody around. As we have 2 coaches hitting the deep squat, we have that 3rd coach going around getting the information we need, so whenever we move to the hurdle step next, we already have it and we can easily just slide that hurdle step and it moves very fluid and efficiently. So have one coach go around, get the information that you need from hand length and tibia height, while the other 2 coaches are doing the deep squat. As soon as they get that, if you haven't finished the deep squat yet, just have that 3rd coach use that 3rd kit and start to finish with the deep squat. So you can get through the deep squat. And then moving forward, you got the information you need. Now you got 3 coaches that can go through each one of those patterns. And you would do, instead of having an assembly line where you go deep squat here, you still go through. It's just I semicircle everybody up. Okay, everybody, here's the hurdle step now. And then be like, go to the coach that you're getting screened from. And then our one kit, 3 kit, 1 coach method. So 3 kits, 1 coach. What I do there is I would line 1 kit, 2 kit, 3 kits up. So I would be, I'm here, I got my 3 kits. And I'm just going to be looking, I'm going to have John, Sally, Susie, and I'm just going to be like, I get everybody in position, so they're all in position. I'm like, John, go. Sally, go. Susie. John, go again. And then I'm able to, as one's getting set up, John, you're 2. Next, and then Sally, you're 3. Cool. Susie, you're 3. And then people are already coming in as John's done and I'm scoring them. Next person is coming up to get in position. That way I'm able to reduce the time of setup, because setup is going to be a big part of the time that chews up a lot of the time. But if you're already set up, I make my little tweak, I say go, I'm able to see that movement. I usually see a compensation happen fairly quickly, and I know that's not a 3, next, that's not a 3, next. And then you're able to go through fairly quickly that way. So if you've got the kits in front of you and you're actually just looking at them and you're able to get them in good setup, call out their name, tell them to go. Whenever you got their score, just tell them to jot that down. They have that clipboard with them and you're able to get through a lot of people. That's how I'm able to do the 4 or 5 people in 20, 30 minutes without really any issue and still have accurate data to work from. So that's our 3 kit, 1 coach. And then rescreening. Rescreening is going to be big. So we want to make sure that this is where it might vary depending on how your gym or operation's set up. So you can either do every 2 to 3 months, you can just do a rescreen week or a rescreen day to where it's you go through one of those group screening methods. The way we do it here is we have the time slots. So we have specific time slots available to where we have a coach and they do the multiple kit, 1 coach. And then, you can sign up, I think it's 4 or 5 at a time for a 30-minute time slot that we just have multiple FMS time slots throughout the week. So we just make sure all our clients are staying accurate, you know, or staying timely with their rescreens, because that's how we know what's working. You know, if you're not going to take the time to rescreen, the system's pointless. You know, make sure that you're actually going through the rescreen, because that's the information to know if your program's working or if it's not.